Hello, my friend, and welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Boss podcast. I'm Jennifer Jayne, your host and the founder of the Fempreneur Collective, and I am so glad you're here. Today, I'm joined by Eliana. Eliana is an intuitive heart attunement coach, proud founder of the Heart of Healing Academy. She guides men and women who call themselves or are labeled as sensitive to connect more intuitively with their energies and a reality beyond the five senses from the space of heart and emotional body. Eliana, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Jennifer. Thank you so much. I'm really
Yay!
excited.
Yay! I knew you were on my list from the jump of this podcast, so I'm glad we finally found the time to sit down and have this conversation. We met because of networking, which is a common thing with my guests here. But over the last couple of years, you've been coming to the Fempreneur Collective networking events, and I've learned a little bit about your business and what you do, but I'm really excited to dive deeper and learn more and hear what you have for us today.
My goodness. How long is this program?
Well, it's as long as we need it to be.
We're going to have to condense eternity and infinity in about 30 minutes. So, here's me. I love living and working with the heart because the heart and its energy yanked me out of severe depression, suicidal thoughts, and feeling that I was totally disconnected from everything and everyone around me. And it put me back in the space where I got to know myself every day more and more. I got to appreciate myself more and more. And I learned to appreciate that I'm a very sensitive soul. And I know when people say sensitive, especially in English, it's not exactly a compliment, is it?
Right.
And so I applaud you, all of you sensitive, because I think everyone has the ability to be sensitive, and it's good because we all need to. We're all passionate about our lives, about our family members, about what we do, who we are. So rightly so, we should all be sensitive, but in a way that we can take that sensitivity up a notch every day,
Mm-hmm.
make it work for us, really allow us to tune into how we think and feel and relate it back to the heart and say, what is right for me? What is wrong for me? How do I feel? How
Yeah.
are my emotions about this? What are my thoughts? How do I feel in my physical body? So this is really what I've been up to over the last 15 years. And I'm still up to it now because when people ask me, and what are you up to now? Or what are you doing? I live and breathe this thing, and it's never a dull day. Everything is new every day. Pretty much all my life has changed so much in the last 15 years. The people in my life's mission has changed completely.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've really stepped into your purpose, right? Like it's that intersection of where passion and purpose connect, and you found that for yourself and you've created it, that's your world now, and I love that so much. More people should be living in that intersection of passion and purpose. That's how we change the world, right? So so that was a lot. Let's break it down, let's pull it back a little bit, like let's unpack some of these layers of being sensitive. Some people label themselves as an empath or soul led or heart centered. Are those words that we use to kind of hide from being recognizing that we're sensitive, because it is not a compliment, right? Oh, you're so sensitive. That I grew up hearing that, right? It's not a compliment. So do we kind of like label ourselves other things to kind of wrap sensitivity in a little bit of armor? I think maybe a pinch. Yeah.
Uh, it's more than a pinch, more
Okay.
than a punch. And I hated it. Same as you. I really hated being called sensitive. Every time someone would label me as sensitive, I'll just kick off. It'll be like the pressure cooker moment for me because I'll say, how dare you? Because it's negative. It almost feels like you're being triggered by everything
Yeah.
around you, but
Yeah.
effectively you are. It's just that you don't know what to do with those triggers.
Mm-hmm.
because they rise your emotions, they rise your blood pressure, they trigger your nervous system. And so the way I started working through heart attunement is really to sort of put some structure back into that sensitivity, so that instead of working against me, so
Mm-hmm.
instead of being overtaken by my emotions that will be completely out of control, I started using it as my special tool, my special recipe. Actually, really understand what my intuition was trying to tell me. Because being sensitive is all about being intuitive, but you don't know it yet.
Mm,
You don't know it just as well because you haven't worked on yourself and you don't know where to start, right? Because many people are so sensitive, they don't know where to start. Okay, I'm sensitive. I'm sensing energies from other people. I'm an empath. You hear that a lot, as you mentioned earlier, but many people don't know what to do with it.
right.
We know that they have that special recipe, that they are that special recipe themselves, right? That
Mm-hmm.
missing ingredient in the whole picture. But how do you use it so that you don't absorb so much from other people? You don't
Right.
become a total giver to get nothing in return. So that was my reason for working with a heart, to bring that balance back. Because, the more you work with your heart energy and the more you fine tune the connection with your body to your heart energy, you kind of recalibrate that compass that says enough is enough. All right. Okay. This
Yeah.
person is not exactly good for me, even though on the surface they look like they're my best friends.
Right.
But there
The
is,
energy's the energy's off. Yeah.
but
Well, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, but there is some sort of subtle energy that you're picking up,
Mm-hmm.
and then makes your body react or your emotions react in a totally different way, which isn't to say that they're bad people, but it just means that for some reason there's something inside of you that you haven't resolved, and potentially you see these people as a menace. So maybe you need to build a thicker skin, so to say.
There's a lot to unpack in that, right? As children, we're told we're too sensitive. So we learn to ignore our own intuition. We learn to ignore what we call now vibe checks, right? And then we go and we work in the world. Most of us get some sort of like retail, corporate. We start doing jobs because we have to pay for our lives. And then something happens where we decide entrepreneurship is the path forward. And all of the sudden, trusting our intuition is paramount to our success. Oh, we don't know how to do it. And we don't know how to listen to ourselves anymore. And we don't know how to actually trust when that awareness kicks in. So where do we start to undo the training and the grooming to ignore our own intuition? Because man survived, right? Like through the evolution of humanity because they listened to their intuition and they trusted their gut and they knew when they were being like spied on or there was an animal overhead or whatever, right? Like when we go way back before the modern era. And then, yay, modern things make it easier, but we stopped using our instincts. So now we have to go back to that. So how do we even begin that process?
And it's also another thing. These devices, right? Any electronic devices, radios, satellites, we are being constantly bombarded by more and more messages, which our ancients didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
It was a much clearer environment where they could easily filter out things. So it was easier for them to connect to the higher self and to the intuition because there wasn't so much interference. Because now sometimes you're plugged on social media so much that at the end of the day, you have thoughts and you ask yourself, are these even my thoughts?
Right.
Or is this something that I picked up from some of the posts or some of the reels on social media, right? I get that a lot. So for me, working in business was another way of challenging my intuition, because when I didn't know anything about social media. I didn't know anything about working online. So I started hiring coaches, sales coaches, marketing coaches, people that will help me with refining my message. And what I was finding is that my message was getting more and more diluted.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a message that I wanted to send to my ideal clients because of how I feel about what I do, right? How I interpret it. And then I was running it past them and it was coming out as something totally different.
Hmm.
To the point that I wasn't recognizing myself. And I thought, okay, hold on a minute, Eliana, stop. Where's your heart? And this is a really powerful question, and anyone needs to ask themselves, whether it's business or whether it's anything else. It's okay to tap into experts because we all work together. So we all get help from different sources, different people that are in certain fields that obviously have been there. They've been through the trenches, right? They've done it all, but not to the point where our voice completely disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Our own essence is just as important. And fundamentally, the mentors and the teachers that work with us, they cannot walk our path. We are the only ones that know if there's a hurdle ahead of us or a boulder that is going to feel scary to the point that we want to turn around, or we're going to park ourselves because we're not ready, or whether we feel that we can actually go through it. So it is ever so important to take a step back
Yeah.
and say, hold on a minute, is my heart behind this? Is my heart in this at all? Because it all sounds very good to say, I need to connect to the message that feels okay for my clients. But which clients?
Right.
Because if they don't speak my language, I can try and tweak it and change it in so many different ways, right? But if they still don't understand me, it's because obviously they're not tuned to the same frequency that I'm speaking. It's a bit like turning the knob on your radio, right? You hear different frequencies and different people speaking, and you think, okay, this sounds like a lot of white noise. It doesn't really connect with me. It doesn't really align to me. And then eventually you find that perfect frequency and you think, that's the sound I like. That's the music I like. And it sounds
Mhm.
really perfect to you. And you think, it's so clear. So it's that fine tuning that you need to do. And you do it gently. Take a step back. You don't have to go 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I'm Italian, so I'm feisty by nature. I was raised by feisty people. So going at 100 miles an hour, it's almost a must for my kind of culture. So it wasn't easy for me to take a step back and say, slow down, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, if you want to go at 100 miles an hour for no reason, just to please other people, just because everyone else is going in that speed, just because it's the right thing to do, you're not doing yourselves any favor. And to do what? Just to compete, to compare yourself?
To keep up.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's when your voice is going to disappear. That's when your intuition goes out of the window because you're led by the mind again that says, do that because everyone else does that.
Right.
Say that because everyone else says that. And what about me? What about your voice? There's nothing that I can learn from social media that tells me how Jennifer is.
Right. Yeah. There's something to be said about experiencing the energy in real time, right? Like I talk a lot about in marketing and in the work that I do that understanding your values and how you want to build and create the world that you live in for yourself really is impactful in how you talk about the work that you do. But even if you nail your messaging perfectly, and you have all of the exact right words that your ideal client needs to hear and the perfect image and the perfect graphic and everything's perfect, it still does not match the actual, like, it can be close, but it will never match the actual experience of being in someone's energy, right? Like if you had written down all of these things that you were saying and sent me an article or a list or like, a digest of who Eliana is and the work that she does, it still would not communicate the same way that having a conversation does and actually experiencing what it's like to be in someone's presence. Now, we're blessed with technology and we can do this virtually across the world, right? I'm in Canada. Are you in Italy right now or are you in the UK?
I'm still in the UK at the
So
moment.
you're in the UK. We're hours apart, time zone wise, we're thousands of miles apart, but we can have this conversation and the energy is flowing. But can you, like, it just you kick it up a notch when it's in real life, right? But like even this is so much more impactful than like the perfect piece of social content. There's just nothing that competes with it.
No, the human factor, the heart factor
Yeah.
is unbeatable. You can't do without that.
Right.
Have you ever been to conferences or meetings where you're in a group with a group of people, where you have like a couple of speakers on stage, and then you look around after a while, you listen to them talk, and you see people checking their phones
Mm,
or sitting
mhm.
back in their chairs, which tells you everyone is dead bored with the speakers. And it's probably,
I'm gonna pause for just a second and close some windows because he's not gonna settle. So I'll be right back, but I'm not gonna let it keep recording.
I
Okay.
can remember I can remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, okay, let's start again. So, have you ever been to one of those meetings or conferences and you're in the room watching speakers on stage, and then you look around after a while, or yourself, you start checking your phone, or you
Yeah.
sit back in a chair, and those are the classic signs of the speakers being so boring,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're completely distracted. After 15, 20 minutes, you think, oh, okay, what shall I make for lunch today? And that is probably because the heart speaker isn't in it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just reading off a script, or maybe they memorize the whole thing, but you don't feel the passion.
Yeah.
You
The
don't feel the
connection.
human, exactly. You don't feel the human being. You don't feel the energy, right? So there's no energetic connection between you and them. And you know, if I have to compare it to the conversation that you and I are having right now, whoa, it's fireworks, right? It's energy moving everywhere, because this is what you want. This is we make an energetic connection with people before we are even in the room with them, or even
Mm-hmm.
before we hit click and we get on Zoom with them. So you already know how you feel, right, about that situation. And you can easily do that by sort of tapping in your body and going, okay, hold on a minute, let's do a scan. How do I feel about this? Do I feel a lump in my throat? Do I feel something closing in my stomach? Is that lower backache coming back? Do I feel out of focus all of a sudden, or am I getting a migraine? So those are all little signs that the body's beginning to talk through your heart and say, hey, Eliana, pay attention,
Yeah.
right? Because those are not the symptoms to be dismissed. And fundamentally, this is your tuning fork, your emotional body coming through and saying, look, I'm going to guide you. You're not alone. Keep listening in, keep tuning in. But most importantly, don't ignore how you feel,
Right.
because we tend to push ourselves in this world so much. Oh, you should
Mm-hmm.
be doing that. You should be speaking to these people, especially in business, right? Oh, we should be doing that because that technique works, that method works. Posting, I don't know, 2, 3 times a day works. Getting X amount of followers on Instagram or LinkedIn works. It's all this could, would, and should
Yeah.
that sometimes it works, but if it doesn't feel okay for us, if it feels like a drag, if it feels like it's work, then we know that the inner voice is there to say, look, you need to slow down.
Right.
It's okay not to go at 100 miles an hour like a Tony Robbins, for instance,
Right.
or his peers. You can only just go at 20, but take your time. Because when I started in this online business world, the first sign for me was to check with my energy levels. Whenever
Mm-hmm.
I'll do like a launch or a promotion of a workshop or a masterclass, I'll get to the day of the masterclass or the workshop, and then my energy levels would plummet the next day. And I had this kind of yo-yo situation. And that's when I realized, Eliana, something is misaligned.
Mm-hmm.
This practice that many people are doing might be fine for them, maybe
Right.
because they're seasoned social media business people, right?
Sure.
But you're still learning. But for you, you need to take it down a notch. So there's nothing wrong with taking a step back and integrating and always refining what works for you, tweaking it, trying something new. Put your voice in it, put your special recipe.
Yes. Your unique magic, as we talk about in the Fempreneur Collective. Yeah, I'm noticing a trend and I'm seeing it coming up in conversations and in content on social media. People are getting really, really tired of the cookie cutter. The I'm going to do everything that person's doing because it's working for them, and I'm just going to become like the new mini version of them, right? And trying to fit ourselves, whether it's someone we're paying for coaching or support or consulting or whatever, and they're giving us their wisdom, and then we integrate that and we try to force ourselves to follow things. We talk in like kind of like the spiritual world a little bit, and when we do, like, I pull tarot cards and I have friends that do different readings and stuff like this, or we talk about human design, there's a lot of conversation and language in those areas where we say, take what resonates and leave the rest. And we have to start doing that with actual business advice as well, right? Like, we really need to start trusting our intuition, latching on to the things that resonate and feel good, and not just like in our head, but like you talk about in our heart and our full body, that feel good for our business, and then letting go of everything else. I worked with a coach 3 years ago, and when I started working with her, I was really excited because her whole thing was feminine energy. And I was like, yes, I'm here for it. I want less masculine force in my business. And then her coaching style was extremely masculine. And the homework she was giving was crunching numbers. And she harped on me for months about getting into more networking. She wanted me to do in person networking, and she would not let it go. It was COVID in Canada. There was no in person networking happening. But she wouldn't let this idea of going, of like, the only way to be successful is to meet people in real life. Now, that is a way to be successful, but it is not the only way. And I got so frustrated with that. It didn't resonate with me, but it also was not available to me, like literally. But like the inability for her to move on and be like, okay, that's not resonating, let's find something else that worked, ended up damaging our coaching client relationship because there was no flexibility. And I think as coaches, consultants, experts in our fields, and then our clients, right, there has to be that energetic give and take of, okay, this is not resonating for them. Me as the professional providing whatever, right, the support. If it's not resonating with my client, it's my job to then help them find and latch onto the thing that will resonate. But we try so hard to force people into these boxes and to be like, no, this is my program, do the thing that I'm telling you to do, that we're doing them a disservice because I know, we know, like as experts, we know when it's not landing. We know when it's not landing. It's our job to figure out why and check if it's a us thing or if it's a them thing. And if it's a them thing, we're responsible to help them figure it out. We can't just keep like trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. It's not fair to anybody. I'm preaching right now. I could rant about this all day, but like we're moving away from the cookie cutter solutions in business. And I'm so glad because I have been talking about this for 5 years.
Honestly, I am so happy because so many, just like yourself, are talking about this and
Mm-hmm.
actually acting on it, not just saying it. Because, you know, we do a lot of networking events, you and I, right? We go to so many other networking events. And lately, the networking events, they feel so free flowing because
Mm-hmm.
everyone is tired of all of this. This is what's going to work. This is what's going to work. They forgot the best part of the conversation to add at the end of the sentence, for me.
Right.
Because also at the energetic level, check this out. This is what you do. If you say for me, you restrict the field of perception to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't enclose that person in your field of perception, which limits their perception. Because if you say for me, then the other person listening goes, oh, okay. So if I think differently or if I feel something else, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Whereas if you come across with this sentence of this what works, then the person who's going to have to implement it, whether it's a business method or an emotional method, like the ones I teach, if they fail or if they don't get results right away, they're going to think, gosh, I'm a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to work. Business on social media is never going to work for me. I'm not meant to be doing it. Yes, you are. but you just have to find what works for you.
Yeah.
And this is so important as well, because just saying something like, for me, it's already indirectly boosting the confidence of the person that works with you.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I learned, this is a funny story, but I went to Bible school when I was like 18 for a year. And I was homeschooled, so I had never had to write book reports or like submit any sort of like official like written documents or anything. So I had to learn very very quickly. And the professor that I was studying under would get so frustrated with me because I would write globally inclusive statements. Like I would say like everyone and many and talking about people. And he's like, you cannot assume that your opinion or your experience represents the whole. So I had to learn very quickly within like my second book report or third book report, because two of them like were fails. I had to rewrite them. That how I position myself and my own opinions and my own experiences is very, very important. So when you say many people or everyone, right, you're encompassing everyone. And I don't know about you, but we live in a world with a lot of different opinions. I recognize that, right? And not everyone agrees with me. So if I make assumptive statements but about everyone agreeing with me, or everyone's bad because they don't agree with me, right? We're putting up barriers and borders to how we can support people. And when we bring it back to ourselves, our own experiences, which is what you were saying, and say, this is what's been working for me, or in my experience, this works well for me. And we just put those qualifiers on that. We're giving people permission to take what resonates and leaves what doesn't. And it's a magical thing.
It's empowering. This is
Yeah.
what the real meaning of empowerment really is, because a real mentor, a real guide would allow that their students, they have a heart of their own, they have a mind of their own, they have a body
Yeah.
of their own. So they need to find their voice, they need to find their unique way of communicating, of doing things. They would never superimpose their ways on others. And this is what I like about many of the mentors I've met, that they said, look, this is what works for me, but it may be that maybe you sharing stories on your Instagram and Facebook feeds works better than doing reels, because personally, reels doesn't really sit with me. All the cutting videos, adding the music, for me feels like a lot of work.
Right.
And with me, if it continues to feel like a lot of work after a few months that I've done it, since I did my reel training, it means it's just not for me, because instinctively it should feel, wow, I can't wait to do this reel.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something that really lights you up. But a story, when I walk by the canal or in the park and I go and feed my ducks and my swans, and I just record a story in one take and then post it with maybe some subtitles or the link to sign up for my masterclass or for my free experience, boom, I know that works for me. And it makes me feel so good
Yeah.
because I'm in the right environment. It's my energy, my heart energy really expands. I'm in my element. And so it's a matter of really trying what works for you rather than dismissing ahead of listening to someone else and saying, if I don't do that, that's it. Big red cross, big fail. No, it's time for you to explore, because you are just as capable. Look, if I've done it, anyone can, because as I was saying 20 minutes ago, being Italian, being fusty and wanting everything done 30 days ago, not just yesterday, patience has always been a really difficult quality for me to cultivate.
hmm
And it's that patience of really enjoying becoming the new you.
Right.
Becoming an entrepreneur, a soul-led and heart-led entrepreneur. And you'd be amazed at how many things you can do, what you can become if you allow yourself to walk this path, to
Yeah.
listen to what your voice wants to say to you.
Yeah. Well, and you can speed it up when you're staying in attunement, right? When you're staying tuned in to what feels good, what actually lights you up and excites you in business and in life, right? We speed up the process because we're moving through levels faster when we stay in alignment and in attunement with what's driving our soul forward. But when we like jerk the wheel and we're like, nope, detour, then we have to start all over again, right? Like have you I don't know if this is true in Europe, but like when you go on a road trip here, you pass like a big rig truck, right? Like you're on 2-lane highway and you pass a big truck. And then in my head, because everything in my head is like gamified in a competition, it's like I got to stay in front of that truck now, right? Because they're behind me. I'm winning. They have to stay behind me. But then I got to take a pee break. So I pull off into the rest stop and run into the bathroom. And then I got to pass the same truck again 5 minutes after I get back on the road. And I'm like, no, they're winning. I'm losing now, right? We do this to ourselves in life and in business, where we level up, we layer up, we get ahead, right? We're making momentum and we're getting towards our destination at a good pace. And then something distracts us. Oh, I need a drink. I gotta have a coffee. I need a pee break. Oh, this person said I should be doing this in my business. This expert, this guru is doing this thing and it made them millions of dollars. So I'm gonna do what they're doing. And we jerk the wheel and we take a detour. And then we spend some time there and we're like, oh, wait, actually, I hate everything about this. And then we got to get back on the highway. And now it's a game of like, instead of staying ahead and we're pacing where we were and we're doing a good job of like getting to our destination, we've taken this like 45-minute detour and we got to make up speed, because you go from turning on the highway at 0, merging into traffic. I'm really pushing this analogy, but you got to merge into traffic and get back up to speed and actually be moving again at the same pace. You can avoid all that if you just don't take the detour unnecessarily, right? Road trips, you got to have to pee at some point, and I definitely need coffee, but like in life, we shouldn't be taking the detours. And in business.
I love it. Honestly, I love it because I also drove a lot when I was living in US, because I
Oh,
lived
perfect.
in
Okay, so it
the
makes sense.
highways make perfect sense.
Yeah.
The track analogy, the fast lane, the slow lane. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
The detours, the dead ends.
Yeah.
But it's the classic shiny object syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How many times? I mean, I've done it myself so many times. Oh, sign up with this and you will get 100 clients booked in the next 30 days and,
Yeah.
50K in a space of a month, when before you made 0. How many more permutations do we need to see? We all know that we have to put the work, because we all put the work because we love what we do. So it's not that we feel that we have to put the work, but it has to make sense to us. Because if we spend so much time, this is the thing about overthinking, and this is about understanding when you're actually using your brain a lot to think so many strategies. This will work, maybe this one wouldn't work. Of course you have to do that, because you have to balance in business the masculine and the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
You have to balance your creativity with your more structured approach. You have to plan. You have to send out messages. You have to contact your previous clients. You have to book the room, maybe. You have to sort of promote what you do. But it has to be done in a way that feels okay with you, because otherwise you're going to burn out.
Yeah. Big
Many of
time.
us do, right? Or, you're going to get to a space where you feel, forget it, I'm just going to wrap it up before I even get to a point or to a space where I feel, actually, this works. And maybe this would have happened in the next 10 minutes, but you gave up too soon because of the detours, because of the shiny object syndrome, right? And we've all seen so many of these shiny object syndromes. I was chatting to someone yesterday in another networking event, how this lady basically put out a message saying, oh, my client this month, she's achieved K because of the methodology that I shared. And then someone told me that she spoke to the said lady, right? The one that supposedly made 50K. She was already making 48 on her own.
Right.
All these cash millionaires and all of that, show me a bank account.
Yeah. Well, and even if they I had a 6-figure launch, I did $100,000 in 90 minutes in this masterclass. How much of that's actually money you get to keep? I'm just gonna ask that. Like, just that's just a question you should be asking yourself, because there's team, there's tech, there's expenses. They did not pay themselves $100,000. But before we get sidetracked and do another 45-minute episode, just on that topic, because that is a topic we can talk about. I want to ask, how do you integrate this into daily practices? Like what about the work you do and you're teaching others do you do for yourself on a daily basis? Like, let's get really practical for a minute. How do you do this for yourself on a daily basis?
So I'm glad you said that actually on a daily basis, because this is the number one thing. It has to be a practice. It's about cultivating a practice. There is no taking a detour out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're someone that is sort of fairly new to working intuitively and to making intuitive decisions, you have to make the time and make it a practice. So the best way to do it is very simple. Get out of bed in the morning before you even go to prepare your breakfast or check your phone and check your messages. Take a scan. How do you feel in your body? What are your emotions like? Take pen and paper, write it down if you have to, and then come back at night or maybe sometime during the day. How do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Start taking a scan maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon or at the end of your workday. What happens then? Is there a headache? Is there a backache? What has changed? What did you have in that day? This has to be done daily because it's important that you learn how to use your intuition. But intuition feels like something ephemeral, ethereal, like something that sits somewhere here around your head, around your left shoulder, something transparent, invisible. But in order to bring it back to a reality that makes sense to you, because you need to manage your energy levels, you need to manage your stamina, right? To make sure you don't burn out, to make sure you don't go around, chasing shiny objects and waste your time and waste your energies. You need to check in with yourself and with your body.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the way to embrace the physical with the invisible reality that is your intuition. So how do you manage to bring them together? By touching base with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid, write it down. And then you can do some introspective analysis afterwards and say, okay, how do I feel about this situation? Because now I've got a headache at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And this happened in the meantime. I had this meeting, I had this conversation, I had this headache, this letter that I got from the tax office, just saying. And so, how do I feel?
Yeah.
And this is when you really get to know your intuition more and more because you've
Yeah.
made decisions about speaking to those people, writing those letters, sending out those posts. Was it too much for you? Is that where your inner guidance was sending you? Or did you force yourself? Hence why now you have the migraine at 5 o'clock.
Right. Right.
So intuition is more physical than not.
Yeah. Well, and by writing it down, have data, right? And we can make really good choices. We can make better choices. We can make very intentional and aligned choices when we have data, right? If you find that you're looking back over the course of a couple weeks and you always get a headache on Thursdays around 4 o'clock, but you have a client meeting or you're doing a program at 2 p.m. and you have a headache an hour later, maybe there's some information you need to be, right, like starting to pay attention to, because your body will tell you the things that are not in alignment for you, but we don't listen. So I love that daily practice of just starting with a scan. I think that's so incredibly clever and such an easy practice because we wake up, we jump into our day. So take 2 minutes and check in and actually make a mental note of, okay, this is my knee's a little sore because we're getting older. But like everything else is feeling pretty good and I'm actually excited about this thing or that thing. I think that's and then just checking in, practicing it, and just by practicing you become so much more in tune and aligned with things, and then you're going to start picking up on things before they happen as opposed to using the data afterwards. I love that so much.
Yes, and as business owners, because we are faced with making decisions throughout the entire day, right? We are decision makers. So it's so important to be in tune with our intuition, but it's also important to say to ourselves, okay, that decision that I made at 10 o'clock this morning to have that speaker at my conference at 1 o'clock, last minute decision. Did it pay off? Or now I'm having a tummy ache because of it. I'm having heartburn because it turned out that he was this worst speaker in this lineup, right? And people were criticizing it. So why did I make that decision? Was it out of fear, out of scarcity? And then you can start with this analysis, right?
Yeah. So good. So good. Eliana, it has been a joy to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Where can people connect with you? What are you working on? How can people jump into your world?
So I am on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and also my beloved website, Light Frequencies, and lightfrequencies.co.uk. And yeah, come and connect and
Perfect.
let's stay connected.
Yeah, we'll put all of those links in the show notes for everyone. Do you have any programs coming up, or is there anything specific that you're working towards that people should be checking out?
So if you go on my website, I have a free 30-minute video that you can check out. It's a video to really build your boundaries. Understand at the energetic level where you're letting go of your boundaries and where you can actually build better boundaries with the people in your life. And
Amazing.
you get to feel it for yourself as you kind of watch the video and do the exercise in the video live. But that is just to give you a taster of what it feels like to connect to your heart energy and to the power of your intuition in relation to building relationships that actually support your life force energy.
Incredible. And it's boundaries. I mean, we could probably do another 45-minute episode just on boundaries, woman. Eliana, you're definitely gonna have to come back because I feel like we need to continue some of these conversations down the road at some point. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening today and for being a part of what we're building on the Everyday Boss podcast and in the Fempreneur Collective. You know what to do at this point. Go like, go share, go subscribe and follow. Go check out Eliana, and then go build your empire.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved every minute of it. Thank you.
Yay!